The title of this video: They invaded Earth's wasteland. Only one human was waiting. In a world reduced to ash and silence, Earth lies abandoned, its cities ruined, its skies scarred by war. The alien Xar'kai return, believing the planet defenseless, unaware that one human remains. Rose, a fierce survivor fused with Earth's last defense, the Genesis core, awakens as the planet's living weapon. As the invaders excavate ancient secrets buried beneath the wasteland, Rose unleashes guerrilla fury, uncovering the truth behind humanity's extinction and Earth's hidden legacy. With allies lost and one faint human signal igniting hope, Rose stands alone in the ruins, not just to survive, but to make the invaders bleed for every step. The wind howled across the scorched plains where cities once stood. A dead Earth breathed ash through its broken lungs, the sun above dimmed behind a permanent veil of smoke and orbital wreckage. Metal skeletons of skyscrapers jutted from the ground like the bones of giants, silent witnesses to a war no one truly won. Amid the dust and ruin, the world had forgotten humanity. All but one. Rose stepped out from the shelter of a decayed overpass, her boots crunching on gravel laced with fragments of glass and charred bone. A faint blue glow pulsed across the seams of her armor, barely perceptible beneath layers of dust and patchwork fabric. Her auburn hair was pulled into a tight braid, her eyes, striking and violet, fixed on the western sky. Something was coming. Something she had waited for. A faint hum trembled beneath the soles of her feet. She dropped to one knee, pressing her hand to the cracked earth. It was real. A vibration, measured, deliberate, too rhythmic to be tectonic. She turned her gaze upward, adjusting the scope on the side of her helmet. Clouds parted briefly, and for a moment, she saw them. Dark specks, no more than shadows at first, pierced the veil above Earth's atmosphere. Then the burn began. Blue fire streaked through the clouds like falling knives, their descent controlled, too calculated to be natural. The invaders had returned. Rose didn't move. She had known this day would come. She had trained for it, died for it in simulations 1,000 times, reprogramming her brain's fear response until instinct replaced hesitation. 10 years ago, Earth's last resistance collapsed beneath an orbital purge, a symphony of plasma and silence. Most had evacuated, those who could afford the ships, the cryopods, or simply ran toward the void in desperation. She stayed. Not because she was brave, or foolish, but because someone had to. Someone had to remember. Talon, she murmured. A metallic chirp answered from the shadows behind her. A small, scarred drone hovered into view, its circular eye blinking amber. It had once been part of a medical fleet, its frame dented and rewired. Now it served as her only companion, and recorder. Log entry, Rose said. Timestamp, day 3748. Visual confirmation of Xar'kai vessels entering Earth's lower atmosphere. Estimated 24 dropships in formation. Pattern is the same as Operation Cinderfall. Looks like they're hunting again. The drone beeped, acknowledging the input. They're late, she added under her breath. She turned, sweeping her gaze across the broken terrain. The land held secrets the Xar'kai never cared to uncover, sealed bunkers, residual code and forgotten satellites, buried weapons of another age. She'd spent the last decade stitching together every remnant, every scrap of forgotten power and defense. Earth was a corpse, yes, but it had teeth left, and she was its last nerve. Her path took her through a collapsed metro line, where tangled metal gave way to echoing dark. She moved like a ghost, every step precise, weapons slung low against her spine. The city above had been called Novus, one of the early megacities built in hope of a unified Earth. Now, vines and rust owned it. A sudden thud reverberated through the tunnel. She froze. Her breath halted. Talon tilted, scanning. Another thud. Closer. She crouched behind a broken support beam, eyes narrowing as light flickered ahead. Something massive passed the tunnel entrance, a war construct. Quad-legged, obsidian-skinned, glowing with veins of red. Xar'kai. Its movement was mechanical, yet fluid, almost organic in posture. It paused, as if sniffing the air, then moved on. She waited, counting seconds. 43. That was their scan cycle. Just as she remembered. When it had gone, she exhaled slowly and moved again. No room for error. The aliens had always underestimated humanity's resilience, thinking of them as a failed species, emotional, chaotic, limited. But in their arrogance, they missed one truth: the ones who stayed behind weren't here to win. They were here to make them bleed. She emerged into the light hours later as the first of the dropships pierced the atmosphere above her. Flaming columns roared into the earth miles away, tremors shaking through the ruins like a god stirring in its grave. Dust rose in plumes. Rose didn't flinch. She tapped her comm link. They're deploying wide. Looks like a perimeter sweep. They still think Earth's empty. Talon beeped in acknowledgement, transmitting encrypted code bursts to buried receivers. All over the wasteland, signals awakened, old satellite defense turrets primed, remote bombs armed, surveillance cams flickered online. She had turned Earth's corpse into a battlefield. And they had just stepped into it. Let them come, she whispered, eyes locked on the nearest ship as it unfolded its monstrous limbs onto the broken soil. They think they've returned to ash. But ash remembers fire. Somewhere far above, another wave of ships breached the sky, casting long shadows over the bones of humanity's lost home. But one shadow stood against them, small, silent, and waiting. Rose smiled. She had been waiting a very long time. The cold air inside the vault stung Rose's skin as the door sealed behind her with a hiss. Here, beneath layers of scorched city and concrete, the silence was thicker, preserved, untouched by the chaos above. Pale lights flickered awake, illuminating rows of servers and shattered glass displays covered in years of dust. She moved slowly, almost reverently. This place was once a nerve center, a strategic outpost for Project Emberfall. Now it was a mausoleum. Talon hovered closer, scanning the systems. A single terminal at the far end flickered faintly to life, its power source drawing from geothermal reserves still trickling beneath the crust. Rose approached, resting her fingers lightly on the cracked keyboard. The screen recognized her biometrics with a soft chime. "Welcome, Lieutenant Rose Halden," it said. The voice was hollow, synthetic, and strangely warm. For a moment, she said nothing. Her reflection in the dark glass stared back, older than she remembered, marked by years of solitude. Scars along her jaw and temple told stories she no longer spoke aloud. Violet eyes held the storm of someone who had endured, but never forgotten. She keyed in the override code, Ember 06, failsafe activation review. Files unspooled. Tactical schematics, encrypted recordings, DNA-locked data streams, all left behind when the world fell. She skipped past most of it. She was here for one thing. A single video file blinked at the top of the screen. "If they return," it read. She played it. The screen filled with the face of her old mentor, Commander Ryan Voss. His beard was unkempt, eyes weary but alert, the stress of extinction etched into every line on his face. "Rose," he began. "If you're seeing this, then they've come back. We always knew they would. The Xar'kai don't abandon prey. They wait. Watch. When the ashes settle, they return to claim the bones." His voice cracked slightly, but he kept going. "You weren't left behind. Not really. You were chosen. Your neural pattern was the only one that could interface with the dormant Genesis core. That's why we couldn't let you evacuate. You are the failsafe. The last living key to Earth's true defense." The message ended. Rose sat back, the silence thickening once more. Her hand hovered over the console. Her pulse had barely changed. She had always suspected something like this. The whispers in the mission logs, the way the command chain fractured at the end, how she had been sedated during the final hours of the evacuation. She had awakened alone with a gun, a drone, and no orders, only the ruins. Talon beeped softly beside her. Do it, she said. The drone extended a probe, interfacing with the console. Old circuits buzzed to life. In the vault center, a panel slid open, revealing a core suspended in fluid, flickering with faint white light. It was smaller than she imagined, less a weapon, more like a seed. She approached, placing her palm against the containment glass. It responded instantly, glowing brighter, pulsing with a rhythm that matched her own heartbeat. For years, she'd asked herself why she stayed. Whether it was guilt, duty, or defiance. Now the answer was simpler: she was meant to. Earth hadn't forgotten her. It had been waiting, just as she had. Her voice was steady. Initiate sync sequence. Rose Halden. Authorization code Emberfall Omega. The fluid drained. The glass hissed open. And the seed, alive, aware, rose from its chamber, drawn toward her outstretched hand like it had been waiting for this precise moment in time. The instant it touched her palm, her body stiffened. A rush of data flooded her mind, memories not her own, blueprints of machines buried across the globe, long-dead defense grids, drone swarms, protocols. She staggered back but didn't fall. The light spread up her arm, along her neck, into her eyes. The Genesis core wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was an interface, linking her consciousness directly to the planet's forgotten systems. She wasn't just Earth's last human. She was becoming its voice. Pain flashed, brief and brilliant, then faded. Her vision returned, sharper than before. A map appeared in her mind's eye. The invaders were already spreading, deploying beacons, scavenging old tech, corrupting what they found. But she saw them now. Every movement. Every location. Talon hovered close, scanning her vitals. Neural fusion stable, it chirped. Then we move, she whispered, her voice layered with a resonance it didn't have before. I'm done hiding. They had come to claim a dead world. What they would find was a memory armed with fire. You said. The wasteland trembled under the weight of the alien patrols. Xar'kai constructs, towering, multi-limbed machines with chitinous armor and crimson optics, marched in measured columns through the ruins of what was once New Santiago. Their scans painted the terrain in pulses of ultraviolet and magnetometric noise, searching for remnants of resistance. They found only silence, unaware it was by design. Rose moved through the shadows with precise intent. The Genesis core had refined her perception, every step was calculated, every breath a controlled rhythm. Her suit, now subtly integrated with the core's interface, hummed with dormant energy, responding to her neural commands before they were consciously formed. She didn't need a map anymore. The land whispered to her, buried satellite links, fractured comms arrays, ancient drones lost to time. She was no longer navigating Earth's bones, she was part of its nervous system. She knelt on a collapsed highway overpass and watched the alien unit below. 2 heavy walkers and a dozen infantry scouts, xenohumanoid with fused armor and serpentine limbs. They had set up a temporary relay beacon at the edge of a broken aqueduct. No civilians. No resistance. Just machines colonizing a corpse. Talon hovered silently at her shoulder. Tactical assessment, 89% probability of mission success. She gave a nod. We need the beacon intact. Cut the uplink, quietly. We take them fast. With a flick of her fingers, 3 dormant microdrones slipped from the storage bay in her shoulder guard. They darted into the air like insects, barely visible, each loaded with a high-frequency disruptor charge. Seconds later, the beacon's signal blinked out, cut off mid-pulse. Below, the nearest Xar'kai infantry tilted its head, sensors scanning. Too late. Rose dropped from the overpass like a shadow falling. Midair, her spear extended from her back, a telescoping arc of titanium-laced alloy infused with plasma nodes. She hit the ground with a crack of energy, blade first through the nearest alien's spine. Panic spread. The others turned, but she was already moving, an arc of motion too fast, too precise for them to counter. She weaved between blasts, her body an elegant blur of muscle and weapon. 2 more fell with clean strikes. A third, attempting to retreat, was impaled before it could transmit. The walkers reacted with brutal speed, energy turrets priming. But Rose had already moved. She darted into the wreckage of a building, drawing their fire. Rubble exploded behind her as she sprinted, calculated each ricochet and blind spot. Then she launched skyward using a gravpulse from her boots, soaring toward the nearest walker's blind dome. She landed hard, plunged her blade into the command node, and released a pulse of the Genesis core's energy. The walker shuddered, jerked, then collapsed, its limbs curling like an insect in death. The second construct turned to face her. Talon swooped forward, deploying a multidirectional EMP burst. The machine froze. Rose leapt again, driving both boots into its primary optics. Her spear finished the job. Silence returned. Steam hissed from the broken husks. Blood, thick, dark ichor from the hybrid infantry, soaked into the dirt. Rose stood amid the wreckage, breathing steady. She wasn't just fighting. She was testing. Adapting. And they weren't ready. Talon pinged. Partial data retrieved from alien beacon. Translation initiated. She waited, pacing slowly as her weapon folded back into her spine unit. The message came through in broken shards of alien dialect, filtered and decoded through her mind's link to Earth's surviving language banks. Harvest continues, no significant threats detected, anomaly in Sector D7, dismissed as residual automaton error. Rose smiled grimly. They still don't know I'm real. A sudden crackle in her comms made her freeze. It wasn't from Talon. It wasn't from the alien beacon. It was from Earth. A voice, distorted, male, flickered through static. Alive, anyone, copy, Sector 12, help. Her chest tightened. That voice. It was human. She turned to Talon. Replay. It repeated, faint but unmistakable. A man's voice, ragged, desperate. For nearly a decade, she had believed she was the only one left. She had searched, of course, found bones, found silence. But never this. Not a living signal. Talon's eye glowed amber. Signal weak. Coordinates triangulated, origin, approximately 74 kilometers west. Survivor protocol, she asked, though she already knew. Talon beeped. Engage and investigate. She looked back at the broken battlefield. The aliens would come searching when this patrol failed to report. Reinforcements would scan deeper, faster, meaner. Her position was no longer safe. But that didn't matter now. She wasn't the last. Or at least, maybe she didn't have to be. She turned west, her silhouette framed against a dead horizon blazing with alien fire. The invaders had returned for a dead world. But Earth still had its ghosts, and they were waking up. The landscape shifted from ruin to jagged ruin as Rose sprinted across fractured concrete and scorched hills, the wind tearing at her cloak. The signal pulsed in her head like a distant heartbeat, weak, fading, human. She followed it westward, into the cratered remains of what had once been an observatory array. Bent satellite dishes clawed at the sky like frozen hands. Every step brought her closer to something she hadn't dared hope for, a voice that didn't belong to the machines. Talon hovered beside her, relaying micro-updates. Signal degradation increasing. Life signs within radius minimal, one source, shallow vitals. Keep tracking, Rose muttered, eyes narrowing as the terrain dipped into a collapsed valley. A trail of smoke curled upward through broken earth, tinged with the scent of plasma and blood. She found the source at the edge of a fissure. A figure lay half-buried beneath twisted steel, blood seeping from a gash in his side. His exosuit was decades old, half-fused with rust and alien burns. But his eyes, when they fluttered open, were unmistakably human. He blinked at her, dazed. "You're real?" I've been asking myself the same question for years, she replied, kneeling beside him. Name? Jace. Lieutenant. Or. I used to be. He winced. They hit our hideout. We were 27. I think I'm the last. Her breath caught. She hadn't just found one survivor. There had been others. A resistance cell, hidden all this time. Erased in hours. She triggered her emergency medical injector, pressing it to his neck. Hold still. As the stabilizing serum hissed into his bloodstream, he grabbed her wrist. They're digging for something. In the north. Not resources. Something buried. She met his gaze, and he saw it, that strange glow behind her eyes. I know, she said. And I think I know why. She helped him to his feet. Talon dropped a soft hover stretcher beside them, lifting Jace gently. Rose turned toward the horizon. The Genesis core inside her pulsed stronger now, aligned with something ancient, dormant no longer. Earth's final secret had always been beneath its surface, coded into its bones. The Xar'kai weren't here to conquer. They were here to extract. Earth itself was the prize. Hours later, under cover of night, Rose climbed the remains of a shattered ridge and looked down into the enemy's excavation zone. Massive machines churned earth like sea beasts, digging not for oil, but architecture, black stone carved with pre-human glyphs, resonating with dormant energy. A ruin not made by human hands. Talon's scan confirmed it. Energy pattern consistent with Genesis-class architecture. Age, unknown. Origin, terrestrial. Not alien. Rose clenched her fists. They weren't just invaders. They've done this before. And Earth. Earth had fought back before. Maybe more than once. From the ridge, she raised her arm. The pulse link initiated. Across the wasteland, her buried weapons and dormant satellites stirred. A decade of preparation now aligned in perfect sequence. She stared at the enemy dig site as thunder rolled over the broken plains. Let's remind them, she said, what it means when a planet remembers. The first orbital strike hit with the fury of a dying star. You said. The next video title The Strongest Alien Fleet Found Her Alone. That was enough.